Hollywood has thrown countless vampires at us for decades, right? We've seen them as suave, aristocratic counts in crumbling castles, sparkling teenagers in foggy small towns, and even ancient queens ruling from the shadows. But there was one story, one specific powerful kind of story, that the studio system was absolutely terrified to touch. A story rooted in the real life horrors of American history. A story of black survival that completely redefines what a monster can be. That film is Sinners, from director Ryan Coogler and superstar Michael B. Jordan, and it has already proven to be the very movie Hollywood was never brave enough to make. Having hit theaters on April 18, 2025, and then becoming available for digital purchase and rental on June 3rd, the film is now set to begin streaming on HBO Max starting July 4th. To really get why a film like this is so revolutionary, we need to peel back the history the industry tried to bury and look at the stories it was too scared to tell. Because this isn't just about one movie, it's about why Hollywood has, for so long, been afraid of the black vampire. For decades, Hollywood has operated on a simple racist lie that black-led films don't make money overseas. It was a toxic, self-fulfilling prophecy they used to justify a system that consistently underfunded and ignored black storytellers. And the horror genre was no exception. Black characters were almost always trapped in stereotypes. There were the sidekick who dies first, the mystical advisor with no backstory, or the tragic figure whose death only serves to motivate the white hero. There was this incredible failure of imagination, a flat-out refusal to see black life as the center of the story, especially in a genre as powerful as horror. The industry wasn't just afraid of losing money, it was afraid of looking in the mirror and confronting the ugly truths about America itself. Because a vampire story set in the Jim Crow South isn't just a monster movie, it's an indictment. And for a long, long time, that was a risk Hollywood just wasn't willing to take. To understand just how groundbreaking Sinners is, we have to open the vampire cinematic coffin. For the better part of 100 years, it has been overwhelmingly white. The vampire we all think of was born from European folklore and Gothic novels, cemented forever by Bram Stoker's Dracula. On screen, that gave us icons like Bela Lugosi's Flick, Fawn Count, and later the brooding rockstar vampires from Anne Rice's books. They were always symbols of ancient European power, forbidden desire, and aristocratic lot. When black vampires did show up, they were the exceptions that proved the rule, and they existed far outside the mainstream. The 1970s gave us the legendary Blackula. In it, William Marshall gives an incredible performance as Mamuwalde, an African prince who traveled to Europe in 1780 to ask Count Dracula for help in stopping the slave trade. The movie directly connects vampirism to the evils of the slave trade and the long shadow of white supremacy, with some scholars viewing vampirism as a direct metaphor for enslavement. Around the same time, Bill Gunn's brilliant experimental film, Ganja and Hess, used vampirism to explore deeper themes of addiction, assimilation, and the fight for cultural identity. These films were subversive and powerful, but they were products of the blaxploitation era or independent film. They were never given the massive budget or marketing push of a major studio blockbuster. Even in the 90s, when Blade blew up the box office, the character's vampirism was treated more like a cool comic book superpower than a deep dive into what that folklore could say about race. So for decades, the default image of the vampire remained stubbornly white, a creature from a European castle, not the American South. The very idea of a black vampire story, treated with the budget, seriousness, and artistic ambition of a prestige Hollywood film, like Sinners, was completely off the table. But with the release of Sinners, that has fundamentally changed. A movie like Sinners isn't just set in the Jim Crow South. It pulls its power directly from it. This era, which ran from the late 1800s all the way through the Civil Rights Movement, was the time of legalized racial segregation and pure terror. When you frame a vampire story here, you're making a powerful statement. The supernatural horror you see on screen is inseparable from the real-life horror of our own history. Think about it. The monsters in the story aren't just the ones with fangs. The real horror of Jim Crow was systemic. It was the ever-present threat of violence, the crushing economic exploitation,
and the psychological warfare of living under a system built to break you. Wealth and power were literally used as weapons to enforce a brutal racial hierarchy. This perfectly mirrors classic vampire mythology, where aristocratic monsters feed on the common people to maintain their power. Hollywood has traditionally shied away from honestly portraying the Jim Crow era, particularly in genre films. This reluctance often stems from a fear of making audiences uncomfortable, which ultimately leads to erasing a significant part of history. However, true horror thrives on discomfort. It confronts our deepest anxieties and gives them a terrifying form. By setting a vampire film in the Jim Crow South, the audience is forced to confront real-life monsters, the Ku Klux Klan, racist landowners, and a brutal system that imposed a living death on millions. In this context, vampires aren't just mythical creatures. They become a chilling metaphor for the parasitic nature of white supremacy. This is a terrifying, powerful, and deeply political concept, exactly what a risk-averse Hollywood avoided for decades. So let's break down what makes Sinners so potent. The film follows twin brothers, both played by Michael B. Jordan. In the 30s Mississippi Delta, the brothers Smoke and Stack return home to a segregated town to build a sanctuary, a juke joint, a place for black music, black joy, and black community.
In this story, the vampire isn't just a physical monster, it's a symbol. The vampire's bite represents a horrifying seductive deal. Assimilation. It's a chance to get power, to join the predators, but the price is your soul and your connection to your people. The film asks the ultimate question of survival. What are you willing to become to escape an unbearable reality?
Suddenly, all the classic vampire roles get a whole new layer of meaning. The idea that a vampire can't enter your home unless invited becomes a profound metaphor for consent, for community boundaries, and for the scary ways oppression can be let in the door out of fear or desperate hope for something better. And the fight against these monsters isn't just about wooden stakes and crosses, it is cultural. The resistance is the blues music bleeding out of the juke joint, a sound born from pain and resilience, transformed into a spiritual weapon. The resistance is the community itself, standing together against the monster that wants to drain their bodies, steal their culture, and extinguish their joy. This story isn't just about killing monsters, it's about the defiant act of living and celebrating black identity in a world that's trying to snuff it out. So why now? Why was this the moment a film like Sinners was finally made and successfully released with a major studio, an A-list director and star, and an IMAX release? The answer is the Black Horror Renaissance. Hollywood had long hidden behind the excuse that black-led films were a financial risk. But in 2017, Jordan Peele's Get Out didn't just prove them wrong, it was a revelation. This wasn't merely a horror film. It was a cultural phenomenon that leveraged the genre for incisive social commentary. Get Out unequivocally showed that audiences were not just ready, but eager. Black-led horror that dared to be real. It didn't just create an opportunity, it forged a wide open path, empowering a new wave of filmmakers to share their visions unapologetically. The fear that paralyzed Hollywood was complex. It was a fear of confronting America's ugliest history, a fear of alienating some imaginary white audience, and a systemic failure of imagination. But the tidal wave of success from the Black Horror Renaissance has proven all those fears were misplaced. Sinners, released theatrically on April 18, 2025, and praised by critics and audiences alike, feels like the culmination of this incredible shift. It stands on the shoulders of giants like Blackula, Ganja, and Hess, and Get Out. It's proof that our greatest fears and our most powerful stories are often buried in our own history. This isn't just another vampire movie. It's a sign that Hollywood is finally starting to realize that some stories aren't just profitable, they are necessary. And that sometimes the monsters we've been taught to fear aren't the ones hiding in the shadows. I am dying to know what you think. If you've seen Sinners, what did you think about it? What parts of the history and folklore did you feel they handled best? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed